Hey, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I just almost couldn't stop. It's just, oh. Okay, y'all, so I almost don't know where to start. It has been so much going on. So much going on. And, once you start going in and digging in, it's just, So, I don't even know. I have forgotten what the title of this. I know it's Epstein. Oh, the fake. Do I just need to start with the fake? Why I'm hearing. Yeah, it's time, y'all. It's it is time for what is the article number 2, section 4? Get them all out. Let's just start all the way over. Let's start with the fake plea deal, peace deal. Maybe we need to start there, because once we go into this Epstein stuff, it is just overwhelming. And I knew yesterday Putin wasn't feeling it. Not Putin. Oh, Lord. Oh, he wasn't feeling it either. He wasn't feeling it either. Yeah. China wasn't feeling it either. And I saw this right here where this guy said it was fake. So let me listen to him, because I didn't.
If you have Snap or
Hold
Medicaid,
on. He sure said it. I have it.
Or Samsung, plus up to 10
I have it saved.
Intelligence videos found that many of the visuals depicting Hamas tunnel networks were actually computer generated,
Oh, well, hold
assembled
on.
from commercial 3D assets.
Okay, start over.
The hardest thing is to get started. You have to.
Oh
hit it
yeah,
on
it's some
first.
fake. They fake it. They playing in our face.
We have started to deal with computers
I don't know
at
why
higher and
Trump
higher
is stuck
levels
on
of
this
abstraction.
Evidence
peace
justifying such an act and still call it self-defense.
on this peace
Right, so it takes a certain
deal
level of
of
arrogance, nerve,
what
and
Nobel
brutality
Peace
to bomb a
Prize.
hospital, take the
Let's
evidence
listen.
justifying such an act, and still call it self-defense. Yet Israel's military has now been exposed as having managed to do all three. For 2 years, it sold the world an underground fantasy, a network of Hamas command tunnels supposedly snaking beneath Gaza's hospitals. Many of these accusations have been debunked before, of course, but never on the scale of the findings of a recent investigation.
It's
But investigators
crazy.
finally collated and analysed the footage. The tunnels led not to Gaza, but to a 3D asset library, complete with borrowed scenes and textures from a Scottish museum. And it didn't stop there either. What Israel called intelligence was in fact digital fakery, stealing images from other sites in order to legitimize airstrikes on sites protected under international law. And now, as Defense Minister Israel Katz has vowed to restart tunnel destruction,
Please listen
once
with
all
your
of the
good
Israeli
ear.
hostages have been freed, something that was completed yesterday, of course, the whole performance now comes full circle. The evidence was fake, the hospitals were real, and the only thing Israel actually dug was the hole it's now standing in. Finder, Scottish outlet The Ferret, which I think
And I
is
know
the
I kept
singularly
saying
best name
them
for
could
a
have been actors,
library,
but I
complete with
saw
borrowed scenes
I
and
saw
textures
something
from a
today. I was
Scottish
like, nah, they're
museum.
not faking.
And it didn't stop there either.
But
What Israel called intelligence was in fact digital fakery, stealing images from other sites in order to legitimize airstrikes on sites protected under international law. And now, as Defense Minister Israel Katz has vowed to restart tunnel destruction once all of the Israeli hostages have been
if
freed,
all of this was fake,
something that
what
was
was all
completed
that money
yesterday, of course,
transferring and
the whole
stuff for?
performance now comes full circle. The evidence was fake, the hospitals were real, and the only thing Israel actually dug was the hole it's now standing in. Finder, Scottish outlet The Ferret, which I think is the singularly best name for a media outlet in the world ever, and Switzerland's SRF. Their joint analysis of 43 Israeli Defense Forces intelligence videos found that many of the visuals depicting Hamas tunnel networks were actually computer generated, assembled from commercial 3D asset packs, and in one notable case, from a digital scan belonging to the Scottish Maritime Museum. The videos have been circulated by Israel's military
A
press units and
museum. Are
broadcast
y'all
internationally.
listening to this?
And now, as Defense Minister Israel Katz has vowed to restart tunnel destruction once all of the Israeli hostages have been freed, something that was completed yesterday, of course, the whole performance now comes full circle.
Performance.
The evidence was fake, the hospitals were real, and the only thing Israel actually dug was the hole it's now standing in. Finder, Scottish outlet The Ferret, which I think is the singularly best name for a media outlet in the world ever, and Switzerland's SRF. Their joint analysis of 43 Israeli Defense Forces intelligence videos found that many of the visuals depicting Hamas tunnel networks were actually computer generated, assembled from commercial 3D asset packs, and in one notable case, from a digital scan belonging to the Scottish Maritime Museum.
Slide.
Videos have been circulated by Israel's military press units and broadcast internationally as authentic recordings of Hamas infrastructure, of course. But these animations were not documentation, they were complete fabrications.
Hi, Maggie.
One of them, showing an
Cynthia.
underground weapons plant, contained
Ronald.
identifiable imagery taken directly from the Scottish Museum's boat-building workshop model. The timing exposed a contradiction at the heart of Israel's narrative. The timing, I thought, was awfully good. The promise to destroy what it has already been caught inventing stories about. The investigation was carried out jointly by Plus 972 magazine, local Call Viewfinder, Scottish outlet The Ferret, which I think is the singularly best name for a media outlet in the world ever, and Switzerland's SRF. Their joint analysis of 43 Israeli Defense Forces
and upset
intelligence
he didn't get
videos
that Nobel
found that
Peace
many of the
Prize, and
visuals
they gave it
depicting
to a
Hamas
brown
tunnel
sister.
networks
Yep,
were
I
actually
think he
computer
asked her
generated,
for it.
assembled from commercial 3D asset packs, and in one notable case, from a digital scan belonging to the Scottish Maritime Museum. The videos have been circulated by Israel's military press units and broadcast internationally as authentic recordings of Hamas infrastructure, of course. But these animations were not documentation, they were complete fabrications. One of them, showing an underground weapons plant, contained identifiable imagery taken directly from the Scottish Museum's boat-building workshop.
I don't trust that.
Downloaded and relabeled as evidence of militant activity.
Qatar.
Under
accident
international
with
law,
those 3
hospitals and
guys. They
civilian
ain't
sites
said none
retain
else about
protection
it.
unless credible proof demonstrates they are being used for military purposes. Those 3D videos had been used to provide that proof. Once shown to be manufactured, they stripped away Israel's legal and moral justification for attacking protected medical facilities. But of course, the deed has now been done, hasn't it? Katz's order now to resume tunnel destruction is therefore not something anyone should take as an expression of defense, but a signal that the same discredited rationale is just going to continue.
Could we use your house to trial our 24-hour
Oh, you can't
bathroom
use my
upgrade
house to do
system?
nothing, baby.
We're looking for homeowners within
Israel's fixation on tunnels predates the current conflict, of course. Since 2014, officials have referred to Hamas's underground passages as the central threat, justifying repeated assaults on Gaza. Over time, that claim evolved into a sweeping narrative, an underground city, supposedly stretching beneath all the hospitals and the schools and the mosques, where Hamas fighters were directing their operations. During the siege of Al-Shifa Hospital back in November of 2023, the IDF released glossy animated walkthroughs depicting steel-lined corridors and command rooms. Major broadcasters replayed these clips as verified intelligence, but the images didn't match the reality. There were no multi-level complexes. There was no reinforced bunker. What existed was a short, unfinished tunnel and a small concrete room. And identical videos followed for the Al-Quds Hospital, for the Kamal Adwan Hospital, the European Hospital, the Indonesian Hospital. Each featured the same aesthetic: cinematic lighting, metal doors, Arabic signage, a few flickering fluorescent bulbs for a little bit of added authenticity. Analysts later discovered repeated use of identical structures and assets, revealing that many of these scenes had actually been recycled from earlier productions. They were not separate discoveries, but variations of a single digital set repackaged for multiple targets. The Scottish Maritime Museum episode demonstrated the degree of fabrication involved. A publicly available 3D model of a historic shipwrights workshop had been imported into an IDF animation and retextured to look like a Hamas tunnel chamber. Museum staff confirmed the unauthorized use after being contacted by journalists and promptly removed the file so nobody else could abuse it. Israel's army had turned cultural heritage material from another country entirely into fabricated intelligence to suit their own narrative. When challenged, the IDF spokesperson's office claimed these visuals were illustrative, yet the same clips had been released as factual proof to the international press. The distinction between illustration and evidence was erased at the precise point it mattered the most, when Israel was authorizing attacks on hospitals. At that point, the illusion disintegrated. Israel was caught presenting digital artwork as battlefield evidence. After this investigation became public, independent teams cross-checked the locations shown in the animations. None of the large tunnel networks claimed by Israel were found. Satellite imagery shows no excavation or structural disturbance of the scale portrayed. Journalists on controlled military tours saw only shallow shafts and small concrete chambers. The specific claim that rifles were hidden behind MRI machines in Al-Shifa Hospital collapsed under basic physics, as I've pointed out before. MRI scanners generate enormously strong magnetic fields. Metallic weapons placed nearby would have been drawn in and destroyed the equipment instantly. These machines can fold up hospital beds. Radiology experts rightly dismissed the idea as impossible, yet the claim persisted because it served a political purpose. There are the photographs. How can you doubt them? Reframe hospitals as legitimate military targets. The exposure of these falsehoods renders Israel's hospital attacks indefensible. Under the Geneva Conventions, protected sites cannot be struck on the basis of speculation. The repeated pattern, allegation, bombardment, lack of verification, all shows a deliberate strategy of manufacturing pretext rather than evidence. So while the story of fabricated tunnels was still unraveling, Israel began to describe its withdrawal from northern Gaza as compliant with the ceasefire. On the ground, it looked like nothing like a truce. Witnesses reported that departing soldiers were setting fire to homes and shops and agricultural land. Israeli authorities described this as demolition of terror infrastructure, as if there was very much left standing anyway. Yet those fires consumed bakeries and schools and water facilities, structures with no military value whatsoever. Residents described soldiers pouring fuel through doorways and igniting it before departure. The scale of the damage pointed not to military necessity, but to punitive destruction.
They planned in our face.
Wanton destruction.
Hold on.
So once access...
So in other words, they played in our face. It's more. Let me get to it. It has just been kind of bizarre. So it appears to me, I haven't really had a chance to process it all, but it appears to me that it was all kind of staged for the most part. Uh, even like, uh, I don't know. Trump is always trying to put together something that is not really legit.
Talk a little bit about. Now, they've
Just to
returned
be
the remains
able
of
to get
Cleanse the
people to say,
Palestinians out of those two areas.
just to get people to say he did something nobody else did. He has been a failure at everything else he attempted. We kind of peeped through it. Everything kind of failed. And so, one period, a week later he going there. It's like they are going merry-go-round, and it's like, well, what? Oh, what? And so they thought they had that deal that time with Iran and Israel. But he let off that bomb, that missile. And then we went over there dropping missiles. And then he was telling Iran, do not. I think the skit was supposed to go off then. But because Trump was running his mouth, they moved the weapons of mass destruction. Let me play this. But I'm gonna play in just a minute how I know it was fake. For real. Okay?
The Israelis have all
Cause he been saying, BB gonna strike.
already de facto annexed Gaza and de facto annexed the West Bank. Their principal goal now is to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians out of those two areas. The idea of ethnically cleansing Greater Israel has been wired into Zionism from the very beginning.
Legendary political scientist John Mearsheimer, the man who co-wrote the book The Israel Lobby, unfortunately does not believe that the ceasefire in Gaza will hold. And honestly, with some of the latest developments, he has good reason to believe that
It's not even a deal. It's 20 parts. 20 parts. Phase 1, 2, 20? Is it 20? Oh, yeah, right. No.
ceasefire will not hold, as both sides have already begun to accuse each other of violating the deal. Now, I want to be very precise with our rhetoric and our language when we cover this story. I made a few mistakes yesterday in referring to this as a peace deal. The fact of the matter is there hasn't been a peace deal, I want to say yet, but when it comes to a peace deal, honestly, I don't know if we're ever even going to reach that. So what we're really discussing here is a ceasefire, and the question is whether it's going to hold. Now, unfortunately, there have been more Palestinian deaths in the Gaza Strip at the hands of the IDF. The IDF has, admitted to carrying out some of these acts of violence. So as of this morning, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza says that 44 people have been killed and 29 injured in the past 24 hours as a result of Israeli attacks, taking the death toll to 67,913. And according to the Independent, seven Palestinians have been killed after Israeli forces opened fire on suspects. They say approached soldiers near an agreed upon ceasefire line in northern Gaza. So, look, we have no way of confirming that. And if I had to bet money on it, I would not in any way trust what the IDF has to say. I also wouldn't just trust what Hamas has to say. But the idea that you shouldn't kill 7 people simply because they're approaching you. Remember, Palestinians are unarmed. Why is that the first response? To just shoot and kill 7 people right there on the spot? But they have confessed to that. Now, an Israeli drone strike also killed 5 people as they returned to check on their homes in Gaza's eastern Shijaya neighborhood, according to authorities. A separate strike killed one person and injured another near Khan Yunis. Now, if you guys can remember from our coverage yesterday, I talked a little bit about how Israel agreed that they would no longer carry out during the ceasefire any offensive military operations, that they would only carry out defensive military operations. And so the argument that they're going to make moving forward is every Palestinian that the IDF kills posed a threat. They did what they did because they were just defending themselves. But I also want to remind you all that they're still not allowing international journalists into the Gaza Strip, where maybe some investigative reporting can confirm which side is telling the truth, which side is lying. And it's a terrible situation. Now, on top of that, there's the issue of the deceased hostages and the fact that Hamas has not returned all of the remains of the deceased hostages. So look, prior to the ceasefire, Hamas was in possession of the remains of 26 deceased hostages. So far, say that again, Jay?
I think it's 28, Anna.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'm sorry.
28.
The Guardian said 26 today, but okay, that's fine. So, all right, let's go with 28. It doesn't matter. They haven't released the remains of every deceased hostage, and that has upset the Palestinians. But there's nuance in this part of the story that I want to talk a little bit about. Now, they've returned the remains of 4 of the deceased hostages. There are reports that they are planning on returning 4 more deceased hostages later tonight. So we'll wait and see if that happens. However, it's really, really important to keep in mind that if you look at the ceasefire deal that was signed by the 2 parties, right? This is the first stage of the ceasefire. There was an agreement that, look, it's going to be difficult to locate the remains of all of these deceased hostages. Some of them are buried under the rubble, for instance. And so as part of this deal, in writing, it was agreed upon that Hamas might need a little more extra time to do what they are agreeing to do in returning all of the hostages, including the remains of the deceased. Families of deceased hostages, though, who are supposed to be returned to Israel as part of President Trump's 20-point plan for peace, said that they were angered that only 4, and you're right, Cenk, 4 of the 28 bodies had been returned. And the Hostages Families Forum, which is an advocacy group for the hostages and the hostage families, of course, called the failure to hand over all the bodies a violation of the agreement and called for the immediate suspension of all agreement implementation until all the remaining bodies are returned to Israel. Now, that's pretty disastrous, but I think that's the first piece of evidence we can point to when we say that the protests about ending the war wasn't really about the plight of the Palestinian people. It was really about releasing all the hostages. What happens to the Palestinians, I don't think, the hostage families really care too much about, but whatever. Putting that aside, a spokesperson for the forum later said that it wasn't calling for a return to fighting, but for Hamas to be held accountable to meet its obligations as part of the agreement. But they are so far meeting the obligations as part of their agreement. As Jeremy Scahill reports, during Gaza negotiations, Israel understood it would take time to recover all bodies of deceased captives. A specific mechanism for recovering the bodies was agreed. Now Israel is pretending that didn't happen so it can violate the deal and cut the agreed aid shipments in half. And in fact, that is what is happening. Israel had initially agreed to allow 600 aid trucks into the Gaza Strip. Now they're saying, okay, well, since Hamas allegedly hasn't fulfilled its promise, which again, they are trying to find the remains of the hostages, and they are actually following through with the agreement based on what's in writing. We're going to go ahead and do collective punishment and severely limit the aid that enters the Gaza Strip. And so that's what we're dealing with now. Red Cross spokesperson Christian Cardone told reporters in Geneva that not all entry points are open to get humanitarian aid inside Gaza. And that's the main issue right now. And that's what humanitarians, including the ICRC, have been calling for in the last hours, is making sure that because of the huge needs, all entry points can be open. We are still witnessing only a few trucks coming in and large crowds approaching these trucks in a way that does absolutely not conform to humanitarian standards. And the coordinator of government activities in the territories, COGAT, The Israeli military body overseeing aid flows said the restrictions were being imposed because, quote, Hamas violated the agreement. Again, they didn't. You can read the agreement yourselves. Regarding the release of the bodies of the hostages, no fuel or gas will be permitted except for specific humanitarian infrastructure needs, the note added. And if you guys can also remember, Cenk, yesterday we were talking about how as soon as the bombing stopped, Palestinians started looking for the remains of their family members under the rubble, but it's really hard to do it because they don't have the heavy machinery necessary to get through, heavy rubble. And so they're using pickaxes, they're making do with what they have, they're using their bare hands. But if in fact you have the remains of hostages buried under the rubble, I mean, Israel can help by allowing the heavy machinery into the territory so they can, get through the rubble and find the remains of, yes, the Israeli hostages, but also innocent Palestinians who have been trapped under the rubble for who knows how long.
Yeah. So it's funny you were saying that right as one of our members wrote in Peace for Peace said, we won't provide you with equipment to remove the rubble, but you broke the peace deal by not giving us hostages buried under the rubble. Well, how are we supposed to get them, right? So it's a great point by one of our members. Embedded Dude, another member on TYT.com, said, one dead Israeli hostage is worth 10,000 Palestinian people. When it comes to American media, I think that is literally true. We're going to talk about that in a second. And last member, and we do the show together with our members, so sign up now if you can, hit the join button below, etc. Wang Jun said, Israel violating the ceasefire is the biggest we told you so since the last time Israel violated a ceasefire. So now, let me break it down a little bit further. So there was 20 hostages that remained alive, 28 that were dead, right? So they returned the 20 that are alive. That's the most important thing, and I'm thrilled that those guys are back. We covered on the show yesterday, the moms, dads, girlfriends, wives in, tears, and super understandable, and thank God they're back. The dead are important to their family members. I understand that. So they had 28 left. They returned 4 initially. They're returning 4 tonight. So there's 20 left that are dead. But Hamas had already explained to Israel and the other people involved in the peace negotiations that they don't necessarily have them, and they need to find them. In fact, I'm going to add on to what Anna said with a part I found from the Wall Street Journal. But you have to understand something, and this is important. These pieces of information are buried in mainstream media articles like the deceased are buried under the rubble in Gaza. So I read half a dozen articles before I finally found this information on the 5th page of a Wall Street Journal article, okay? So they say, quote, Hamas had communicated to mediators that...
I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing
they didn't know where all the bodies were, and the two sides agreed to set up an international task force to search for the remaining bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So Hamas has definitively not broken the deal. Now, did you see that on cable news? Did you see that as a headline anywhere? Mm-hmm. No. What I have read and seen all over mainstream media is Hamas breaks the deal. They had it coming. Hamas breaks the deal. Hamas breaks it. You're lying. Yeah. You're literally lying.
Both of them lying.
Or you're ignorant buffoons who are actors reading a script that your producer wrote for you, and your producer is lying.
Right.
You ignorant buffoons. This is important. Get it right for the first time in your lives. But nope, they're all going to lie on behalf of Israel. And then when we say, hey, it looks like you're working for Israel, they're like, how dare you, you anti-Semite! Of course we're going to lie on behalf of Israel. Well, then you're not news. And go, by the way, I say go to Israel, but Israel is way better press than we have here. Israeli press holds the Israeli government accountable way more than American press does. Mm-hmm. So now we get to how Israel is violating the deal. So, look, guys, I thought it was 53% because that's what I was reading in the past. Now they're clarifying, no. Israel currently occupies 58% of Gaza. So they already stole more than half of Gaza. They're never going to give it back. They're never going to withdraw. Everyone who isn't stupid knows that, or ignorant, right? Well, to be fair, most are in the ignorant category. And if you're accidentally ignorant because you watch cable news or you read the New York Times, I don't blame you, right? They're just purposely lying to you over and over and over again on behalf of their beloved Israel.
They have a whole luxury.
Stole all that land, And if I'm wrong and they withdraw completely, oh my God, of course I'll come out and tell you. You know why? Because I'm in the news business, where we actually report things, whether it's favorable or unfavorable to our point of view, unlike the mainstream media who hide facts from you. All right, so in this case, they say the 5 unarmed Palestinians approached the yellow line. So you have begun to approach the area of Gaza we stole from you earlier by murdering your family members. That's it. Kill them all. Because we told you they were never going to stop killing. And because the American government keeps writing them checks. Oh, you murdered more Palestinians. You violated Trump's ceasefire. Who cares? Write them another check. Write them another check. And American media, oh, Israel, the Palestinian dirty savages, right? I'm so sick of our disgustingly racist media that is constantly smearing Palestinians. And of course, Israel cut all the aid in half, as Anna told you. So they're back to murdering. They're back to starving. Day one. We told you this government of Israel is a terrorist government. They're never going to stop murdering the Palestinians.
And so
They're
is
never going to
Trump.
stop stealing their land and trying to
he's
create
giving them
greater
our
Israel.
money.
And they say it. They say they want greater Israel, and that includes Gaza as the West Bank. The only reason why that's not crystal clear to everyone in America is because the American media absolutely refuses to tell you what the Israeli government officials actually say. Like, for example, did you read everywhere? Did you see on cable news that Netanyahu said in Hebrew, as we reported?
Oh, yeah,
yesterday?
he definitely said it.
Oh, the campaign's not over. He has no intention of listening to Trump's peace plan. None, zero. He said it.
I also wouldn't just trust what Hamas has to say.
Let me go back.
We get to how Israel is violating the deal. So, look, guys, I thought it was 53% because that's what I was reading in the past. Now they're clarifying, no. Israel currently occupies 58% of Gaza. So they already stole more than half of Gaza. They're never going to give it back.
Nope.
They're never going to withdraw. Everyone who isn't stupid knows that, or ignorant, right? Well, to be fair, most are in the ignorant category. And if you're accidentally ignorant because you watch cable news or you read the New York Times, I don't blame you, right? They're just purposely lying to you over and over and over again on behalf of their beloved Israel. So they already stole all that land. And if I'm wrong and they withdraw completely, oh my God, of course I'll come out and tell you. You know why? Because I'm in the news business, where we actually report things, whether it's favorable or unfavorable to our point of view, unlike the mainstream media who hide facts from you. All right, so in this case, they say the 5 unarmed Palestinians approached the yellow line. So you have begun to approach the area of Gaza we stole from you earlier by murdering your family members. That's it. Kill them all. Because we told you they were never going to stop killing. And because the American government keeps writing them checks.
Set them free just to kill them.
You violated Trump's ceasefire. Who cares? Write them another check. Write them another check. And American media, oh, Israel, the Palestinian dirty savages, right? I'm so sick of our disgustingly racist media that is constantly smearing Palestinians. And of course, Israel cut all the aid in half, as Anna told you. So they're back to murdering. They're back to starving. Day one. We told you this government of Israel is a terrorist government. They're never going to stop murdering the Palestinians. They're never going to stop stealing their land and trying to create greater Israel. And they say it. They say they want greater Israel, and that includes Gaza as the West Bank. The only reason why that's not crystal clear to everyone in America is because the American media absolutely refuses to tell you what the Israeli government officials actually say. Like, for example, did you read everywhere? Did you see on cable news that Netanyahu said in Hebrew, as we reported yesterday? Oh, the campaign's not over. He has no intention of listening to Trump's peace plan. None, zero.
Whatsoever.
He said it. He said he's on a spiritual and historical mission to capture greater Israel, which includes Gaza and the West Bank. But the American media will lie on behalf of Netanyahu 2,000 times over and do their stupid propaganda as they go back to their genocide immediately. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true.
He said totally not true.
But it
hold on. Let's get to the next one real
keep you
quick.
updated on our live shows.
Hold on.
Cocktails, perfectly mixed. Got water.
The positivity and relief about the prospect of
Hold on. Is that is that it right here? Yeah, it's right here. Okay.
The prospect of peace in Gaza. Not everyone's been thrilled, but aside of the US president honoring Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Knesset.
I think the chances that this ceasefire will hold are not good at all. The idea of ethnically cleansing Greater Israel has been wired into Zionism from the very beginning. This is why you had massive ethnic cleansing in 1948 and 1967. And here, after 2023, you had a big war, and the Israelis always see big wars as an opportunity to ethnically cleanse. The fact is, the United States is not going to cut off its aid and assistance to Israel. It's just not going to happen. And President Trump has never given any indication that he would do that. When President Trump says to Benjamin Netanyahu, if you don't accept a two-state solution, I will cut off all aid, then I will apologize to you and say that you were right and I was wrong.
Amid the positivity and relief about the prospect of peace in Gaza, not everyone's been thrilled by the sight of the US president honoring Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Knesset. The fact remains that more people now than ever, including among Trump's base, are deeply uncomfortable about Israel's influence on US politics and deeply skeptical about the prospects of a lasting peace while Netanyahu is still in power. For this analysis, I'm joined now by international relations scholar, Professor John Mearsheimer. Professor Mearsheimer, great to have you back on Uncensored.
I'm glad to be back, Piers.
It feels like a day of history today. What is your assessment of the ceasefire, of the dramatic release of all remaining living hostages, and of the scenes in the Knesset with President Trump? What is your view of it all?
Well, I could make a number of points. First of all, it's wonderful to see the hostages released for their sake and for their families' sake. And it's wonderful to see the Palestinian prisoners released as well. That is all a net positive. In terms of President Trump and his performance in the Israeli Knesset, it was vintage Trump. He's one of the greatest showmen of all time. His ability to put on a rock and roll show is just not to be underestimated. I don't think there's any other politician in our history or on the planet at this point in time who can operate before an audience as well as he does.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to substance, which is, of course, the key issue, I think that this hostage exchange, this temporary ceasefire and hostage exchange is definitely a move forward. But the two critical questions on the table are, number one, will you get a permanent ceasefire? Will the ceasefire hold? And then number two, will you get a genuine peace agreement at the end of this entire process? And I think there is zero chance you'll get a peace agreement. And I think the chances that this ceasefire will hold are not good at all.
Why?
Well, the Israelis are bent on destroying Hamas, and more importantly, they're bent on ethnically cleansing the Palestinians from Gaza. That's their principal goal. They have not defeated Hamas, and there's no way that they're going to end up disarming and defeating Hamas as a result of this ceasefire. It's just not going to happen, and I can explain why. And furthermore, the Israelis are not going to completely leave Gaza as long as Hamas is not defeated. And given that situation, coupled with the fact that Netanyahu and company are determined to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza, it's only a matter of time, I think, I hope I'm wrong, I think, before the ceasefire breaks down and we're back to conflict. Well, by the way, Piers, you want to remember,
Hey, Alicia Little here, and I'm excited to announce that the third annual
Please hit the like button.
Summit is here. This is the
right before President Trump took office. He took office on January 20th. On January 19th, a ceasefire was put into place. And that ceasefire lasted until March 18th when the Israelis broke it. But over the course of that ceasefire, the January to March 2025 ceasefire, 33 Israeli prisoners were released and 5 Thai prisoners were released. So we have a precedent here. But the fact is, after this earlier hostage exchange, it broke down, the ceasefire broke down, and you were back to the genocide. And my great fear is that that's what will happen this time.
The thing that I was most concerned about in the last few months was the increasing rhetoric from the likes of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in the Israeli government, the hard right element of that government, where they were talking in the most brazen way about ethnic cleansing, but they were making it crystal clear that they now saw the mission as kicking Palestinians out, cleansing Gaza, as they put it, and taking that land, which they believed is, their religious right. But what's interesting to me is today, coupled with all the scenes of hostages going home and Trump and the Knesset and so on, you also saw thousands of Palestinians going back into where their remains of their homes are, to try and start rebuilding their lives. That is not consistent with my fear that Israel was really plotting to expel them all and keep them out. Are you not encouraged by the scenes of so many Palestinians being allowed to go back to where their homeland was?
It's hard not to feel good about seeing the Palestinians return to their homes.
That's rubble.
It warms the cockles of my heart, although it's terribly depressing to see what's happened to their homes. But the more important question, Piers, is what is the political settlement here? There are two big questions. Who is going to run Gaza? In other words, is there going to be Palestinian self-determination? Are the Palestinians going to run Gaza? That's number one. And then number two, what is the political horizon? What is the end game here? And with regard to the question of who is going to run Gaza now, it's not going to be the Palestinians. It's going to be President Trump and apparently Tony Blair and some of the Arab armies in the neighborhood are going to provide security. But the Palestinians are not going to have self-determination here. They're not going to run Gaza. And then, more importantly, in terms of the long term, there's not going to be any two-state solution. There's no political solution here. So this one's just going to go on and on.
I mean, you're very downbeat about it, but others who are involved at the sort of sharp end of negotiations, they do believe that out of the hell of the last 2 years, there is a genuine opportunity and a genuine collective will from the neighboring Arab and Muslim countries, including Turkey, Egypt, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, to try and use this as a way of getting to a two-state solution. Why are you so pessimistic about it?
I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it unequivocally clear on countless occasions that there's not going to be a two-state solution.
He has, but what if he's not there?
Unequivocally.
What if he's not what?
It's a position that's widely shared in Israel. And after what's happened over the past 2 years, do you think any Israeli is going to be interested in a two-state solution? Probably the number you can count on one hand. It's just not going to happen. The Israelis have already...
It's a plot. It's a play in our face.
Annexed Gaza and de facto annexed the West Bank. Their principal goal now is to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians out of those two areas. The idea of ethnically cleansing Greater Israel has been wired into Zionism from the very beginning. This is why you had massive ethnic cleansing in 1948 and 1967. And here, after 2023, you had a big war, and the Israelis always see big wars as an opportunity to ethnically cleanse, and that's what they are trying to do.
Okay, but there are two things I would say about that, which may counter that rather doom-laden narrative. One is President Trump, who has set his stall and his reputation and his legacy on this being a lasting peace. This is, by his own admission on the plane Air Force One last night, this is the biggest moment of his life that's unfurling here. And I think he is determined to try and bring lasting peace. And he is key to Israel's ability to continue prosecuting a war against Hamas or to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. He's made it clear there can be no annexing of the West Bank. The Palestinians must be allowed to return home. So I'm encouraged by that. And the secondary issue, which is more of an economic issue, which is that before October the 7th, Saudi Arabia was making a lot of signals that they wanted to join the Abraham Accords, which would have a very significant financial, economic benefit for Israel if that happened. And that's been put on hold for this war. But, the signals again coming from Saudi Arabia is that if this all gets resolved, and if there's peace in Gaza, and they can move towards a two-state solution, or at least have the sort of planks for that to go ahead, then they may join the Abraham Accords too, with all the benefit that would come to Israel. So there are two things there which I think would slightly counter your narrative.
I see too many portfolios in today's market sitting dormant.
Oh my God.
Not because the
I
market
Pierce
isn't
believe
moving,
everything
but
Trump
because
say.
Well, I would make 2 points. First, I think you greatly underestimate, Piers, how deeply committed the Israelis are to ethnically cleansing both Gaza and the West Bank. The Israelis now have a situation where there are roughly as many Palestinians as there are Israeli Jews inside of Greater Israel. And this is an unacceptable situation for most Israelis. And they're completely committed to ethnically cleansing Gaza and then the West Bank. I think the evidence is overwhelming on this. Now, you say President Trump sees this as a great opportunity to prove that he's a statesman and he can bring peace to the Middle East. I think in principle that he'd love to do that. But I've written a book with Steve Walt on the Israel lobby, and there's absolutely no question in my mind that if President Trump gets rough with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Netanyahu will turn to the lobby, and the lobby will force Trump to back off. There's no way Trump is going to get tough with Netanyahu if he violates the ceasefire. Remember, he did that on March 18th.
But do you not think he's already got tough with him? Because I think the catalyst for what we've seen today, and unfold the last few days, I think the catalyst was Israel's attack on the Hamas negotiating team in Doha, which was unbelievably
Okay, I can't handle it.
It was a catastrophic failure. They didn't kill anyone from the Hamas negotiating team. They killed a Qatari security guy and other people unconnected with Hamas. And the opprobrium that's brought on Israel from all the leading leaders of the Middle Eastern countries and states around there was tremendous. They all got on the phone to Trump. And then an extraordinary thing happened. Donald Trump made Netanyahu get on the phone and apologize to the Prime Minister of Qatar. I've never heard of anything quite like that happening. It was a public humiliation for Netanyahu. And it showed me that Trump does wield a lot of power. I mean, if Trump was to suddenly say, we are withdrawing all military support and financial support for Israel, then Israel could not be the superpower that it is in the Middle East.
You're absolutely right. There's no question about it. Israel is amazingly dependent on the United States. Israel, when I was younger, prided itself on the ability to provide for its own security. Israel did not want to be in a situation where it had to rely on another country for its defense. And it's reached a point where it is extremely dependent on the United States. And this is not good for Israel from Israel's point of view. But the fact is, the United States is not going to cut off its aid and assistance to Israel. It's just not going to happen. And President Trump has never given any indication that he would do that. When President Trump says to Benjamin Netanyahu, if you don't accept a two-state solution, I will cut off all aid, then I will apologize to you and say that you were right and I was wrong. But he has never even come close to that, as much as both you and I would like to see that happen.
When they talk about an interim kind of administration in Gaza and want to include Tony Blair, how feasible is it that Blair could be credibly involved in something like that? Trump has been saying you have to look at it today, but there's been a lot of unrest there about Tony Blair's involvement, given his track record with Iraq and so on.
Yeah, I think that Trump is beginning to back off on the idea of putting Tony Blair on the Board of Peace. I think there's no question about that. But the key issue you want to ask yourself, Piers, is who is going to govern Gaza moving forward? If you're a Palestinian, whether you're in Hamas or not, you want the Palestinians to be in a position where they determine their own future.
Right.
If you're a Palestinian, you want to run your own politics. And if you look at the arrangement that President Trump has set up, the Palestinians are not running their own politics. And by the way, he's decided that at some point down the road, the Palestinian Authority, after it has been re-educated, can take over in Gaza. And you sort of say to yourself, from a Palestinian point of view, what is this telling you? President Trump is going to decide who runs Gaza? This is unacceptable to us as Palestinians. And this is the basic problem that you face. Nobody in the West, and certainly the Israelis, are willing to allow the Palestinians to determine their own fate or to have a state of their own at the end of this political process. And as long as you don't do that, this conflict is going to go on and on, especially when you consider who's in the driver's seat in Tel Aviv.
But isn't the reality on the ground there that Netanyahu operated a divide and rule quite deliberately between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority from 2006? He seemed either oblivious or oddly unconcerned by the fact that the billions of dollars he helped funnel to Hamas was being squandered on this elaborate tunnel system. As he was totally oblivious, it seemed, to any warnings of what may happen on October the 7th, which seems extraordinary to me given the powers that the Mossad has. But that actually the only logical way, surely, going forward is to no longer have a separate Palestinian government in the West Bank and Gaza, but to have a united government for both areas, because they've shown that where you have two, actually it can lead to massive instability, which is what I think Netanyahu wanted, but he didn't realize just how bad it would get. Is there not a logic in having the same governing body in both the West Bank and Gaza?
If you saw the news, but Fox News is claiming President Trump is declining in the polls.
Do y'all want
President
me to,
Trump responded, says Fox News polls can't be trusted.
Yes, there is. And if you're in favor of a two-state solution, as you are, then you want the Palestinian Authority to be in charge, not only in the West Bank, where they're now in charge, but in Gaza as well. But you want to understand that Benjamin Netanyahu wanted Hamas in charge in Gaza because they don't want a two-state solution.
Yes, I agree.
And he's made it clear to President Trump now that he does not want the Palestinian Authority to take over in Gaza, because his great fear is that that will mean movement toward a two-state solution, which he doesn't want.
Y'all ready for me to nip that all in the bud? You know, he right. he right. I think Pierce just like believing in Trump for some reason. I don't know.
This is the great
oh no,
problem
I'm done with y'all. I got to get on. Y'all ready for me? Y'all please hit the like button. Listen.
Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President.
What is that? Right off the bat. So when he was at the office, he had already rejected it. You understand? What we have seen is just a horse and pony show. Let's go.
Or if they supposedly accept it and then
supposedly accept it,
then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself.
You can't make this up. Netanyahu accidentally
exposes
the plan of this 20-point
He accidentally exposed
it.
it.
Accept a deal where Tony Blair and Donald Trump
and they gonna act like
Gaza. And it's an embarrassment that the Arab countries would even voice any support for this.
Oh, hey, all y'all. I'm sorry. I missed y'all. Hey, Vicky Dope. DJ guy.
That this is an Israeli proposal. Trump and Netanyahu are desperate because Israel is losing a lot of reputation in the world, with most countries already.
He has already denied it. He rejected it.
Trump is desperately trying to reverse. This deal is not going to be accepted. Why? Netanyahu told us.
Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President. Or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself.
You can't make this up. Netanyahu.
So that's the plan, y'all. They gonna act like, you know, and then he's gonna come up with a reason, and we see he already coming up with excuses. Oh no, he did. Yeah. Y'all see what I'm talking about now?
This is the plan of this 20.
It's already staged. And so Trump was to get all of this. Oh, he did it. Oh, he did what no one else could do. All of that. And now he up there talking about, Hamas, I'm warning you, I'm going to cut you off. All that staged. They playing in our face.
The United States of America is never going to be prosperous, and it is never going to be at peace unless we eradicate the Zionist parasite in our economy, our entertainment system, our mass media, our social media.
It's all over the place, y'all.
Of course, our educational system and our government. The Rothschilds, the Vatican, and the Chabad supremacist cult have basically a global network of control that relies on gold and blackmail. And
that gold that he done brought into, oh, hold on. That gold that he done brought into the White House to make it the
United States of America is
golden
never
White
going
House.
to be prosperous, and it is never going to be at peace unless we eradicate the Zionist parasite.
Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to set this up. You know, I can't stand when folks try to play in my face.
Our economy, our entertainment system, our mass media, our social media.
See, this is where Diddy come in at.
And our government.
That's why Clive Davis ignoring him.
The supremacist cult have basically a global network of control that relies on gold and blackmail. And pedophilia is a huge part of it. Right now, we don't have the public in public government. We have two criminal classes, one called Republican, one called Democrat. We have been deliberately dumbed down over the last 50 years. We've been dumbed down chemically. Fluoride is one way in which we've been dumbed down. Too many people across America have become stupid. They are in a polarized mindset, and they're not capable of having a fact-based conversation. The amount of garbage
no, they don't like the facts.
average American is subjected to on a 24-hour basis is it's no wonder we've become an idiot nation. We have fragmented America. We have tried to eradicate individualism. We have tried to eradicate family and community, and that is all part of this globalist agenda. The United States of America is never going to be prosperous. And it is never going to be at peace unless we eradicate the Zionist parasite in our economy, our entertainment system, our mass media, our social media.
Hold on. I'm over here, so I need to go and get this out the way. You know I keep...
Trump just said something absolutely insane, and this will make your blood boil.
Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon?
Evil. Look at that face.
After he done act like he done really made a peace deal. Now, he want Bibi Netanyahu to get a pardon for his crimes.
Look at that smirk.
Ain't there nothing?
By the way, that was not in the speeches, you probably know. But I happen to like this gentleman right over here, and it just seems to make so much sense.
Now, to put this into context,
Netanyahu
was indicted in 2019 on charges including bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in 3 separate court cases. Also, what's important for context is in 2023, between January and October 7th, Israel was seeing unprecedented protests against Bibi's government. Over the course of the 9.5 months, there were 8 major protests protest, attracting more than 100,000 people each. Then, on October 7th, Hamas carried out the terrorist attack, one that Egypt warned Israel about just days before, one that IDF whistleblowers came forth and said they were given stand-down orders. And after this, it sparked the 2-year genocide carried out by the Israeli government, where Bibi claimed that he was at war, thus pausing all of the court cases against him. And now, after murdering a confirmed 600,000 individuals, with estimates of being well over 100,000, you now have the President of the United States, the country that is supposed to be the protector of justice, saying that Bibi should be pardoned. So it's the new precedent that anyone can do any illegal activities, start a genocide, create peace, and then be pardoned for anything prior. And you should watch this video again, because to me, this is what demons look like. What do you think? Trump just said something absolutely insane.
It's crazy. Hold on. Oh, I don't know if I can play this one. Let's hear it.
Families as a cash crop. We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child sex abuse. It's also child torture, because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world.
The younger the soul, the more innocent the soul, because they've had less chance to sin. So the more innocent the soul that they sacrifice, the more power in the sacrifice. And that was told to me, again, by a practicing Satanist. When they kill the child and they've brought them to total fear, if they eat the flesh, then they, of course, acquire the child's awareness, his uniqueness, his IQ, his courage, his whatever.
Families as a cash crop.
Okay, now, and, when I heard that, all I could think about was, I don't know what that man was, that priest was to Oprah Winfrey, but, he was doing something. Wasn't he selling off babies? I think he got convicted with selling off kids and babies to black market. Yeah, I have a problem with that. Okay, so listen, before I go back over to the other side with the Epstein stuff, are y'all ready for this with your good ears? Please get the likes up. Hey, Lisa. Y'all ready? Give me a 1 if y'all ready. Ooh. Ooh. Lord, it's just too much. It's just too much. It is just too much. Y'all give me a 1 if y'all ready. Oh. I started feeling like I was in the ADOLPH case today. I'm not going to even tell no story. I felt because stuff was just constantly coming to me. Okay, let's go. Yeah, got you good here.
What if I told you Gaza already has a business plan? Not for peace, not...
They already got a business plan? What? You lying. Let me go out and start over. They already got a business plan? Oh, shit.
What if I told you Gaza already has a business plan? Not for peace, not for rebuilding lives, but for luxury resorts, AI tech hubs, and billion-dollar highways. I don't usually touch the Israel-Palestine debate.
So Trump Towers and shit like that.
I save it for the podcast.
Makes sense.
Yesterday, I posted one simple fact. Most of the world supports the Palestinian people, while Israel spends hundreds of millions on propaganda to cover that up. And like clockwork, outpoured the uninformed hot takes. So let's throw one more truth into the mix. Last week, Netanyahu was in town with Trump. They unveiled a 20-point plan to end the war, built by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and billionaire Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, and his partner in a crypto company, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Keep the IDF in Gaza while a board of peace, led by Trump and overseen by none other than Tony Blair, the globalist who gave us the Iraq war, while he manages a transition. No ceasefire, no two-state solution. It's not a peace plan. It's a takeover plan. Because what they didn't show you was the actual blueprint for New Gaza.
A blueprint. I knew. Now,
And backed by Saudi
I knew it was
Arabia
going to be a
and
Trump
UAE,
tower.
your shiny new name, the Great Trust. Gaza reconstruction, economic acceleration, and transformation. It's all in the slides. Gaza, Trump, Riviera and Islands.
There we go.
Luxury condos and hotels. The Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone, MBS and MBZ Central Highway, named after Saudi and Emirati rulers, and the American Data Safe Haven. Who wants to bet Larry Ellison gets this plot? And a nice little section for unexploded bomb clearance. Number one. This whole protect against the Muslim shtick, it's getting old. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are deep in this deal. Number two,
yes.
How's Jared Kushner, who already took $3.2 billion from Middle Eastern sovereign funds, how is he in charge of both the official Israeli peace deal and the business
Okay,
deal?
so let me pause. Dang it. I can back it up. When he says Saudi, now Saudi, we just signed off and let them build, right, in Utah. Right? After somebody came from a jet, not a jet line, or some military plane, all black, on the roof. They ain't saying nothing about it. The people who saw them on the roof really hadn't been questioned by the FBI. Yeah. Then they got into a wreck and they're not talking about it. But tea sippers, I need for y'all to think back. I need to pump the brakes on not gonna sue you and Trump. And let's go back over to Diddy. Do anybody remember the young lady who, I think her last name is English, A English, and she was in Florida. She met some Arabs or something at the hotel, and she wound up at whose house? Whose house party did she wind up at? Do anybody remember whose house party in Florida did she wind up at? I think they invited her to go to their party, and then she wound up being a go-go dancer, and then she turned into, how may I help you? Let me walk you to your room. Do anybody remember that? Tea sippers. Okay. Okay. I guess not. So yeah, the Saudi Arabia king, he was a princess. He was a prince. She met him. He had a woman already in the house with him. She was supposed to be a model or something with him. And then he brought her to one of Diddy's parties. And instead of modeling, she wound up being a go-go dancer. And then he asked her, did she want to step it up or take it to the next level, because she was in the music industry. She was chasing that, okay, but what about my music and all of that type of stuff? And then she wound up becoming a hooker. Saudi. He was a prince. And it's funny. The more I was digging today, that Qatar is fishy. It's fishy. And they have not, Trump and them have not brought it up. Let's go.
Reconstruction, economic acceleration, and transformation. It's all in the slides. Gaza, Trump, Riviera and Islands, waterfront luxury condos and hotels, the Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone, MBS and MBZ Central Highway, named after Saudi and Emirati rulers, and the American Data Safe Haven. Who wants to bet Larry Ellison gets this plot? And a nice little section for unexploded bomb clearance. Number one, this whole protect against the Muslim shtick, it's getting old. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are deep in this deal. Number two, how's Jared Kushner, who already took $3.2 billion from Middle Eastern sovereign funds, how is he in charge of both the official Israeli peace deal and the business deal to profit from it? And finally, why is it always normal for billionaires to kick people out of their homes so they can gentrify the land and call it stability? Their own
Making America great again. That's what they did to black people when they went over to Africa, took over, brought them back, free labor. And then I was looking for it today. I started late, but remember the resort where the undercover guy told us what the setup was going to be. It all makes sense to me. What the plan is. And Trump is funneling our money. He had the treasurer yesterday send $20 million. For what? You already bailed out Argentina. What about our farmers? What about the U.S.? You cutting from us and funding them. And you have a whole, y'all taking over. So everything that they act like they did was a lie. And one of the guys that was from Qatar didn't agree with the plan that they had. And you see what happened to him.
Say they want to turn Gaza into a $320 billion asset within 10 years. This is not charity. It's not peace. It's the same boys club running the same money play.
Right.
With human lives as collateral. Apparently for your safety. Seriously? Does this look like a peace deal? Or does it look like billionaires carving up a war zone for profit?
There we go. Hold on, I think I got one more over here. Now that I'm thinking about it. What is this one? Yeah, one more. Let me see what this says.
Listen to Minister of Internal Affairs of Jordan cooking Netanyahu in front of leaders from 57 Arab countries, and I promise you, you're not going to find this video anywhere else.
I want to add one sentence. The Israeli Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee, mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state, along the preference that we all agree. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask Israeli officials, what is their end game? Other than just wars and wars and wars. I'm telling you, all of us in the Arab world here, we want a peace in which Israel lives in peace and security, accepted, normalized with all Arab countries in the context of ending the occupation, withdrawing from Arab territory, allowing for the emergence of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state on June 4, 1967, lies with occupied Jerusalem as capital. That is our narrative. That is, and we will guarantee Israel's security in that context. Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and this that? The amount of damage that the Israeli government has done, 30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it. The amount of dehumanization, hatred, bitterness, will take generations to navigate through. So ultimately, the question is, we want peace, and we laid out a plan for peace. Ask any Israeli official what is their plan for peace. You'll get nothing, because they're only thinking of the first step. We're gonna go destroy Gaza, inflame the West Bank, destroy Lebanon, and after that, they have no plan. We have a plan.
Oh, they have a plan, boo. Oh, yeah. They have a plan. They have a whole luxury plan, boo. They just ain't telling you they have a plan. Oh, they have a plan. And who y'all have over there thinking, bringing y'all peace and faking the funk? That's why, oh boy, Putin, like, I don't know what y'all doing. I'm finna push the button. China, Oh, they got a plan, sir. Okay, let's come on over here. Let's listen. Now we going over to the U.S. Let's go.
The single only person in American history, in the world, who's ever indicted a president.
Listen to
the man you might recall, who brought two criminal indictments against then-defendant Trump. I am talking about someone we almost never hear from before, during, and after those cases. Former DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith, the only federal prosecutor to indict a president. He just doesn't speak much. You might recall that if you remember those busy periods during his two cases over the past years. But he has now, the news tonight, made this rare public appearance.
Organized crime family.
And it's with someone you might recognize, a fellow Justice Department veteran, Andrew Weissman, who also we should note is an MSNBC analyst. So this is big news, full disclosure, someone we work with. But when this hit, I don't care who he happened to be talking to, it was going to be a big deal because it was his first comments since all of this happened, and the person he once prosecuted as a federal defendant, Donald Trump, has become president again. Smith, who speaks in a very businesslike and dry way, you can prepare for that because I'm going to show you this. He is not jumping around and being dramatic. He's not speaking in sound bites, to be sure. And yet, in a way, he was still quite candid about what was his long, secret, discreet work as a special counsel prosecuting a former president who was also a candidate. And he discusses, based on the evidence and facts, he says, what is wrong with the Trump long, secret, discreet work as a special counsel, as a federal defendant. Donald Trump has become president again. Smith, who speaks in a very businesslike and dry way, you can prepare for that because I'm going to show you this. He is not jumping around and being dramatic. He's not speaking in sound bites, to be sure. And yet, in a way, he was still quite candid about what was his long, secret, discreet work as a special counsel prosecuting a former president who was also a candidate. And he discusses, based on the evidence and facts, he says,
thank you, Miranda,
with the Trump Bondi DOJ today.
What's your new
Once we
favorite?
get in a position where we start talking about maybe not following court opinions we don't like, we are lost. The attacks on public servants, it has a cost for our country that is incalculable. The idea that politics played a role in who worked on that case or who got chosen is ludicrous. Everybody who worked on my team was fired. Apolitical people who wanted to do the right thing and do public service. They brought somebody in.
I hope you're talking about me, Miranda Scott.
That just reeks of lack of process. Process shouldn't be a political issue. People have to think about what matters to them. And if they believe in things like the rule of law, take that commitment and find another way to be part of the solution.
That's just some of what he says there. Smith first rose to prominence in 2022 when, because of his credentials, these prosecuted war criminals, prominent people in the public corruption unit, another case that was tinged with political questions because he went after a then top Democrat, former Democratic running mate John Edwards. Based on that background, he brought that to this approach, and he oversaw those DOJ probes that resulted, as I mentioned, in the first federal indictment of a president. He dealt with the obstruction alleged, the hiding of classified documents, and of course, then defendant Trump's recent history involved in January 6th.
Appointing Jack Smith
to serve as special counsel.
Jack Smith, the special counsel appointed to investigate former President Donald Trump.
He's become the first former president ever to face federal charges.
Charges are related to Trump's mishandling of documents.
Charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States.
4 counts related to alleged actions he took to stay in power after the 2020 election.
Former President Trump is angry about Jack Smith. He believes that the Justice Department is aligned against him.
Federal officials launched this weekend an investigation into Jack Smith.
That is some of how we got there. During that period, as mentioned, Smith did not do interviews. Legally, he could, but he never did. Not with journalists or television, but not with lawyers or other settings. He was quiet and only spoke, if you will, or communicated through those filings. And after he left, and during what we've lived through this first term, this first year of the second term, we haven't heard from Smith much. So now there's plenty to discuss, both the case history, which there are legal ways he can discuss the parts that are not classified or secret, grand jury, and a president who is taking square aim at his perceived opponents through DOJ powers. The Judiciary Committee is now calling on Smith to go under oath with a line of attack, saying that now that he's essentially popped up, they still view this as a partisan, politically motivated history in those indictments. But he is sounding alarm bells, and we're going to play more from this newsworthy interview. I have some more.
Anytime somebody tells the truth.
Say now off top to help us understand what you learned.
Sure. You know, there's the substance of what he had to say, but I think that
Thank you, Alina.
People watching this, I would encourage them to sort of sit down and listen to the whole thing, because in many ways, what's more important than the substance is I think you get a sense of the man and the person. He came across to me as extremely heartfelt and sincere. I think he's clearly been through a lot. But he mostly, when asked that sort of personal question, spoke about his team and what his team has been through. And so I really think one really useful thing for him speaking is for people to get to know him as opposed to the caricature of him. And that's why I hope he continues to speak out for that reason.
Really striking, because he, James Comey, others are facing these type of attacks that sometimes combine what looks like
the judge
with rules and process
ruled in his favor today,
or even indict them, and then, as you mentioned, a kind of a public cartoonish attack that may affect how Americans understand what this was. Let's play another newsworthy part where you asked him to discuss, and he went into what he knows a lot about, how the DOJ works, what the rules require, and what that tells us about that new, unusual indictment of former FBI Director Comey.
This latest prosecution of the former director of the FBI, there's a process to secure an indictment. There's a process of predication, having some evidence before you do that. And again, I only know what I see myself in the media, but the career prosecutors, the apolitical prosecutors who analyzed this said there wasn't a case. And so they brought somebody in who had never been a criminal prosecutor on days' notice to secure an indictment a day before the statute of limitations. And that just reeks of lack of process. I think a lot of Americans do not see this as a political issue. Process shouldn't be a political issue, right? Like, if there's rules in the department about how to bring a case, follow those rules. You can't say, I want this outcome, let me throw the rules out. That's why, frankly, you see all of these conflicts between the career apolitical prosecutors I worked with, because they're being asked to do things that they think are wrong, and because they're not political people, they're not going to do them. And I think that explains why you've seen the resignations, you've seen people leave the department. It's not because they're enemies of one administration or the next. They've worked through decades for different administrations. It's just they've been doing things apolitically forever, and when they're told, no, you got to get this outcome no matter what, that is so contrary to how we were all raised as prosecutors. I think that's been the center of all the conflict.
He identifies the civic tradition there, and in the interview he also mentioned that we have a comparison. If you go back far enough, we had what he refers to as the patronage system, where relationships and ultimately corruption Trump expertise, and he talks about why that's a problem in prosecutions or national security, why that hurts us.
Absolutely. That was sort of a running theme that he hit over and over again, that there is an apolitical process. And he really tried to not criticize the current administration, but rather to point out the obvious contrast between what is supposed to happen in an apolitical Department of Justice, regardless of party. And you can obviously then see what is happening now and contrast and compare those two. I thought that was quite striking. One of the things he did point out that I thought was some news was in pointing out that he followed all of those internal processes when he was special counsel, and the sort of tempest in the teapot du jour, which is the people on Congress complaining about whether Jack Smith was spying on them, was something that was not true, and that all of the processes that were necessary just to get sort of limited telephone records was disclosed in the report that he issued, a very, very lengthy report, but also was something that had to be approved all the way up the chain within the Department of Justice. This is something that there was a process that he followed. And so that was a real theme, that you just don't do things willy-nilly. You don't do things because you like someone or dislike somebody, that there's a process to follow, and that's what career people and professionals do.
Yeah, it's the rule of law. It's hung over this Trump era, and it's the difference between organized societies and ultimately oppression and bedlam. I mean, that's you can take it back hundreds of years, which is why sometimes this does feel weighty. We've again gone through. Here's another interesting part where he, upon your questioning, discusses the impact, the personal toll in these cases.
Yeah. What have the consequences been in terms of just the personal lives of either yourself or your team, in terms of how they have to live, whether they can find jobs? What is it like to have to live through that kind of harassment for what seemingly is just doing your job?
Everybody who worked on my team was fired, not just the lawyers, but the administrative staff as well. I think these are people who have spent their careers sacrificing for the communities they want to protect for our country. I'm really upset that people like that not only are being vilified, but that it's hard to get their stories out of who they are. These are people, lawyers aside, these are people who put their lives on the line. And for them to be fired for stuff like this, I just don't see how anyone can hear those stories and not be moved by it.
Mm-hmm. Very moved. Hold on. I know I'm a trip. Trump. I think I got you in. I just need to see.
The story that we're following, brand new, is former special counsel Jack Smith, who was the first and only prosecutor to ever indict a city who has not been legally accused.
That's the same thing.
Of wrongdoing in this case, important. Talking about someone we almost never. Political enemies.
This latest prosecution.
Okay, so they all on him, cause they think he finna go in on Trump, but I want to get this out.
Folks, let's start tonight with a video first obtained by MSNBC. Former special counsel Jack Smith is now making his first public comments about his investigations into Donald Trump, speaking exclusively with MSNBC's Andrew Weissman in London. During that extensive conversation, Smith blasted the recent charges brought against Trump's perceived political enemies. His team and all of the career public servants who have been pushed out of the Justice Department because of the Trump administration.
I think the
so I think he's just repeating. Oh, they have the panel. Okay, I need to get to the Epstein.
And a minor. Epstein got a lenient, short, starting in March 2005, when local police in Palm Beach, Florida, began a probe into Epstein. The Epstein case has many details and open questions. Our timeline today focuses on the key facts and developments, starting in March 2005, when local police in Palm Beach, Florida, began a probe into Epstein, investigating reports of abusing victims as young as 14. The local case led to Epstein's indictment for a single count of soliciting prostitution in 2006, not the more serious alleged conduct. In fact, the lead detective in the Palm Beach office referred the case to the FBI to look at the more serious crimes, and those federal investigators began probing allegations. In 2008, Epstein reached a deal with the Bush administration's federal prosecutors to take that local Florida conviction for soliciting prostitution with an adult and a minor. Epstein got a lenient, short prison sentence and an unusual agreement that the Bush DOJ would not prosecute Epstein further, or 4 of his co-conspirators, or any others. Bush DOJ prosecutors also agreed to keep the deal secret and not inform Epstein's victims about it. A judge later found the Bush DOJ's secrecy deal was illegal, violating those victims' rights. So the facts show from the start, Epstein got this on the Bush DOJ's secrecy deal was illegal, violating those victims' rights. So the facts show from the start, Epstein got this unusual protection from the government, in this period, a Republican administration, Bush. And Epstein was a rich, powerful figure. He had ties to people in business and politics. He hired a Republican-connected lawyer, former independent counsel Ken Starr, and served just 1 year in that deal. Now, another 9 years went by, and then the Miami Herald reported an Epstein expose on the allegations of his conduct and that Bush-era prosecutor who cut the sweetheart deal. That investigative report gained traction, partly because of a tie to Trump, who promoted the very prosecutor, Alex Acosta, to his cabinet. The headline at the time hammering how a now Trump official gave a serial sex abuser the deal of a lifetime. And that public pressure from the Herald drove a new federal probe. Internal DOJ reviews would show Acosta had poor judgment in the case, and that the blanket immunity offers for Epstein and others were just indefensible, leading to a fairly swift federal indictment of Epstein on far more...
Yeah, I need y'all to get the likes up. Double tap the screen. Come on. Just double tap the face of your phone. Or hit the thumbs up on your computer, please. Almost there. Give me 10 more and I'll go ahead and start. I'll start it back up, please. Pretty please. With cherry on top. And that, what is that called? Whipped cream.
Serious sex trafficking charges. And the
I didn't
pressure
get
drove
them.
the original
It's just too
prosecutor Trump had
late.
promoted Acosta to resign around this time. And in a key decision, a judge denied Epstein bail, forcing him to be incarcerated before any trial. It was just over a month later, August 2019, when Epstein was found dead in his cell. The situation was suspicious. Officials there broke several protocols. Epstein was a high-profile detainee. He'd been placed on suicide watch, which was then quickly lifted. Guards failed to do required inspections the very night of his death. And a lot of questions were hanging over all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go even further ahead, all the way up to 2019 and what happened after that. Because key videos went missing. Trump Attorney General Barr even admitting the prison made mistakes then, but claiming that he personally reviewed prison video which showed no one entering the cell. And with Epstein dead, prosecutors turned to a co-conspirator who might have benefited from that original
Y'all
Florida
better
case
come on. I got
shut
something
down,
good
what I told you
coming.
about. They went ahead and indicted Ghislaine Maxwell for helping Epstein's sex trafficking, a case brought by a career prosecutor, Maureen Comey, daughter of former FBI Director Comey. And her work continued on when the Biden administration took over. She won Maxwell's conviction and this 20-year prison sentence. Then, during the 2024 campaign, the questions and theories about Epstein's crimes and special treatment were heating up on the right. It was a problem for Trump, given that he promoted the original prosecutor, that he oversaw the DOJ, which failed to answer questions or have transparency about whatever happened in that prison cell. So Trump tried to go on offense, vowing to declassify and release Epstein's files. And his attorney general took over that message and advanced it in office, now infamously claiming that she had the client list on her desk, which she later contradicted because shortly after, the DOJ released an alternate video from the prison. But the key video that shows Epstein's cell door is either lost or hidden. It's never been released. And Bondi released the now infamous memo that said they wouldn't provide any other Epstein documents. So Bondi went from saying there was a client list to there wasn't. She was lying then or lying now. The DOJ memo then said there was no other Epstein info that was going to be released, which ignited that firestorm of criticism we all lived through. And given the broken vows, that couldn't hold. Trump soon contradicted his own DOJ's memo and saying he would try to get grand jury material released, but those are limited transcripts. A lot of the big Epstein information is in the Trump DOJ. They could release it anytime. One judge has denied this. And as the Trump administration's contradicting claims drew more heat on its secrecy, the DOJ then sent this former Trump criminal defense attorney to interview Maxwell in prison and then transferred her to a better prison, an apparent reward for the one person doing any time for Epstein's indicted federal crimes. Your reaction to this reporting about the apparent unusual or special treatment for Maxwell?
It's offensive to the survivors. You know, the survivors are at the center of this, and they often get forgotten. They were in the front of the steps of the Capitol. They talked about being abused and raped at the age of 13 or 14, about having to go recruit other junior high girls, knowing that they would get abused by Maxwell and Epstein. And they found it so outrageous that there was any talk of giving Maxwell lenient treatment given what she had done to those women. And so I just, on an emotional level, am outraged by this. And I don't understand how this has become a partisan issue. You have survivors who are saying that they want justice.
The administration doesn't seem to care about the substance, the ethics, as you put it, or a term they throw around a lot in Washington, the quote optics. Because as we reported, they rushed to respond to that unusual interview with this special treatment transfer. Can the Congress do anything about that?
Can, and the first thing we need to do is to have the full release of the Epstein files. And here's the state of play on that. We have 217 signatures. We need one more signature to force a vote in the House of Representatives. It's an open secret that if we get that vote in the House of Representatives, you will have 50, 60 more Republicans defect because they're not going to vote against the release of the files.
What do they call it? They call that log rolling or something? Where in the Congress it's like everyone's ducking it, and then if it happens, everyone jumps on it.
Exactly. You know the terminology. But we've got Adelita Grajova, who a few weeks ago wins her election in Arizona. It's not close, 70-30. It's a blowout election. And for the past 2.5 weeks, since September 23rd, the Congress has literally been shut down. We didn't come back to vote on the pay for troops, which is ending on a Wednesday, but the president had to rearrange money at the DOD just to pay the troops. Why are we shut down during the Congress? For one simple reason: Mike Johnson knows that the day we have votes, Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in, and then we have a 218 signature, and we get the vote in the Epstein files. So we're going to get this done.
Just to slow you down, you're saying once that's sworn in and you're back in regular order, presumably post shutdown, then you all but have the vote.
Once we have votes, whether it's during the shutdown or after the shutdown, that day Adelita Grijalva becomes the 218 signatory, and then 7 legislative days after that, we can force a vote in the Congress, and we will have the votes on the files. But they want what they're hoping, and they've hoped this time and again when they shut down the Congress during the recesses. They're hoping if they just delay this, maybe this issue goes away.
Yeah. And you said, I said log rolling, you said 7 legislative days, a type of day. So we both get one strike on jargon, sir. Let me turn your attention to this CBS report, which was pretty astounding from an investigative view. No indication.
No one should have to drink water like this.
That when the Trump BOP and DOJ went in there, when Epstein was first found dead, that they ran fingerprints or DNA tests inside the cell. So that's the evidence response team. They didn't, according to the documents reviewed by CBS, ever run those tests. Is that suspicious? And when we look at this misconduct, I want to be very clear with viewers. There could be mistakes and failures by the then Trump Bureau of Prisons that don't involve Epstein being killed. That's one of the questions under investigation. But could have just involved other failures that they didn't have a lot of interest in getting into. So they didn't really do a thorough probe. That's the implication of CBS. At the same time, as you know, the DOJ then was under Democratic control for 4 years. The Inspector General report, as I understand it, was ultimately finished under the Biden era. And it doesn't seem, from what we can tell, that either party running the DOJ at the time has been very thorough about this, been, shall I say, interested in whether it ultimately found errors of any kind by the government, which is why we don't usually trust the government to investigate itself. Your response on that, and specifically on the Biden DOJ part?
Well, there are obviously questions, and I don't think anyone is saying that DOJ under Biden, under Trump, or frankly, for decades since these women haven't had justice, has done a good job. That's why people are saying, let's have the release of the files. I mean, the survivors who I've gotten to know now personally have been denied justice from the first time that Jeffrey Epstein got a slap on the wrist plea deal. And they've not been consulted by Justice Department lawyers. They are asking for these files to be released.
And why is that as compared to other important crimes that get prosecuted? Do you have a core answer of why?
I think they're rich and powerful people who were involved, and they think that they basically had one system of justice and didn't get care about these women's stories. I mean,
right. So you're saying it's as bad as it looks, and
okay, hold on. Ooh, I'm glad that stopped. Okay. I'm gonna go here. Let me see if this touches it.
Inmates at a minimum security prison in Bryan. All right, so folks, check this out. We just got a pretty major update on the whole Ghislaine Maxwell Epstein files story that is truly stunning. This article that we're about to go through in the Wall Street Journal genuinely left me pretty shocked with just how blatant the Trump admin's cover-up of the Epstein story is, how they're very obviously trying to keep Ghislaine Maxwell quiet for Donald Trump's benefit. She's getting special treatment in prison, meeting with secret individuals while all the other inmates can't know anything about her. It's very, very strange. We're going to go through all this information and more in just a moment. Before I do so, I ask that you subscribe down below. It goes an incredible
Can y'all hear that?
I really appreciate it. Drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about this story. Without further ado, let's just dive in. There's so much to get through today. Let's start with the article. The article from the Wall Street Journal, Lockdowns and a Mysterious Meeting. A quiet Texas prison adapts to life with Ghislaine Maxwell, and here is where it jumps right into the insanity. On a weekend in mid-August, hundreds of inmates at a minimum security prison in Bryan, Texas, were locked down during their usual time for strolling the campus and visiting with family and friends, all except one person, Ghislaine Maxwell, the 63-year-old associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who was convicted for some of the worst crimes in modern American history. While her fellow inmates were confined to their dormitories after breakfast, Maxwell met with several visitors in the federal prison camp's chapel, according to people familiar with the matter. That, folks, is special treatment. Prison is being shut down so Ghislaine Maxwell can have meetings with mysterious people who, by the way, we still don't know who these people are. The Trump administration has not said so. Nobody from the Bureau of Prisons has said so. Nobody in the prison is even allowed to talk about it, which we'll go through in just a moment. It is truly crazy. And just remember that over the summer, randomly, one day, Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from a high-level security prison in Florida to a low-level security prison in Texas, where normally non-violent inmates are meant to be. But then suddenly Ghislaine Maxwell, who is obviously a violent inmate committing horrible crimes, is moved to this prison where she gets to do job training and she gets to do yoga and things like that. That is incredibly suspicious. Very weird. The transfer, of course, as you'll folks remember,
what is it called? Work release.
With Todd Blanche, during which Maxwell said she had never saw Donald Trump do anything wrong with anybody. And so she said that, and then she got moved to a nicer prison. Isn't that weird? Maxwell's unexpected arrival upset the camp's usually relaxed atmosphere.
So
leading to more
embarrassing
frequent
story.
Lockdowns, the addition of armed guards, and other changes. It couldn't be determined who Maxwell met with in the chapel that day. Some prisoners heard the lockdown was needed to accommodate important visitors. Who are the important visitors? I mean, with everything the Republicans have done to cover up the Epstein files, I think it's pretty important for the American people to know who these important visitors are that are meeting with, again, one of the worst criminals in modern American history, who happens to have been, best friends with the current president of the United States. One inmate recalled seeing Maxwell return to the Madison dormitory unit that day with a smile on her face. It is so sickening to think that this
Smile
person
on
who
her
has done
face.
so many awful things to people is just getting handed special treatment from the president of the United States, so much so that she's meeting with people secretly, having prisons shut down, and she's happy about it. She's smiling. And the story continues to get worse. And I think this is a really important point to talk about, this prison that she's at. Most candidates for this medium security prison committed white-collar crimes. They face short sentences
Paulette,
or have served a
Scotty,
large portion of a longer one and are considered a
Lillian.
low flight risk. None of these things apply to Ghislaine Maxwell. The Bureau of Prisons policies prohibit sex offenders from serving time in minimum security facilities without a special waiver, which means that Maxwell somehow got a special waiver. From who? We still don't know. I think the best guess is Donald Trump. Maxwell has the fourth largest remaining sentence of more than the 600 inmates at this prison, and you can see just a graph that shows you all of the different time frames of people, I should say the sentences of people at this prison. Maxwell has the fourth longest sentence. She should not be there, and yet she is. Now, I do want to get into this, which might be the craziest part of the story, and that...
Yeah, I need y'all to hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Double tap the face of your phone. Or hit the thumbs up. Oh, that device went off because it took y'all too long. So let's go ahead and just move on over here. Here is the tea. Here's the good tea. I need for y'all to listen with your good ears, please.
Hold on. Look, I want to present this factually. I don't need people coming with the anti-Semitism accusations. Let's live only in the world of fact. Do people make
those accusations?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Wait, that happens?
Today, right now, this entire thing is going to be branded anti-Semitic. But, well, listen, I don't care anymore, but even though they are going to say that no matter what, we should not be irresponsible, and let's live in the world of fact. So go ahead, Joey, and scroll down to the thing that I have here. That says Epstein and A. Barack. So, okay, let's go ahead and put put this up here.
Yeah.
Here are the lists that I compiled just yesterday of every Israeli prime minister who we know who is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Number 1 is...
Did he say Israeli? Did he say Israeli prime ministers that's tied to Epstein? You lying. Did he say every one of them? You lying. I know you lying to me. Who is this guy on the back? Right here. Back screen. Drop. I know you lying. Let's go.
That I compiled just yesterday of every Israeli prime minister who we know who is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Number 1 is Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres was the prime minister of Israel in the 1980s. He, according to Ehud Barak himself in the open record, introduced Ehud Barak to Jeffrey Epstein. So that's the first prime minister of Israel that we know is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Number 2 is Ehud Olmert, who was named as an Epstein associate by the U.S. Virgin Islands in their lawsuit against J.P. Morgan and Chase. I will be honest, Ehud Olmert, we have the least amount of information. We only know he was named by the U.S. Virgin Islands as an Epstein associate. Number 3, Ehud Barak, as I list there. Connections too vast to paraphrase, all right? And so let's spend some... They're going to say that no matter what.
So where Trump was the other day, where he was the other day with his peace deal, where he is working on luxury, taking over, acting like he don't want the genocide, acting like he want peace, enough already, you know, him. You mean to tell me these are people who are also the reason why Trump is, because I keep telling y'all that Trump is not just protecting himself. He not protecting that Epstein file, all of that information. We're going through all of these changes, jumping through all of these hoops, creating all of these narratives. He not just doing it for himself. I was trying to tell y'all, as nice as I knew how, trying to get y'all to recondition your mind. I'm trying to tell you, it is some foreigners on there that he has done business with. He got deals with. They've been doing this human trafficking, money laundering for years. Hey, Mrs. Pretty Lady. For years. And it wasn't that he just saw his name on there. Some of these people that he's doing business with, he forgot they was on there. Understand? Including, because you remember I showed y'all a couple weeks ago, and I re-showed y'all last week, where the Qatar man showed him something that wouldn't let his grip go, wouldn't let the grip go, then pulled out that paper, showed him, and Trump was trying to yank it out of his hand real quick, and then they laughed at him in his face. And then 3 guitar people, you know, no. Then they got an opportunity to build an Air Force in Utah. Then 3 of them died while he was going over there for the peace deal. So, you mean to tell me yeah, let's just listen.
This entire thing is going to be branded anti-Semitic. But, well, listen, I don't care anymore, but even though they are going to say that no matter what, we should not be irresponsible, and let's live in the world of fact. So go ahead, Joey, and scroll down to the things that I have here that says Epstein and Ehud Barak. So, okay, let's go ahead and put this up here. Here are the lists that I compiled just yesterday of every Israeli prime minister who we know who is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Number 1 is Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres was the prime minister of Israel in the 1980s. He, according to Ehud Barak himself in the open record, introduced Ehud Barak to Jeffrey Epstein. So that's the first prime minister of Israel that we know is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Number 2 is Ehud Omer, who was named as an Epstein associate by the U.S. Virgin Islands in their lawsuit against J.P. Morgan and Chase. I will be honest, Ehud Omer, we have the least amount of information. We only know he was named by the U.S. Virgin Islands as an Epstein associate. Number 3, Ehud Barak, as I list there. Connections too vast to paraphrase, all right? And so let's spend some time now on Ehud Barak. Let me return to Netanyahu in a bit. In my document, you can scroll to the Epstein and Ehud Barak section. Ehud Barak stayed for multiple times at Jeffrey Epstein's house. This is confirmed. He flew dozens of times on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet.
But he has nowhere else to stay in New York City.
Yeah, right. He's a former prime minister of Israel.
Where could he stay?
Actually, Joey, can you pull up the photo of Ehud Barak? Ehud Barak, Epstein mansion.
That was my thought. That was my thought. This is the biggest problem. You're going to go stay at the Four Seasons?
No, I want you guys to see the photo. There's a photo of Ehud Barak walking into the Epstein mansion with his face covered, with a scarf up to his nose, and this is pre-COVID times. He says it was cold, but
it was cold. It was cold.
Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Look at that. That's him walking into Jeffrey Epstein's house. That's insane. People don't walk around like that. They don't walk around like that.
That's post-2000.
Sorry. Yeah, and this is post-2008.
So again, we're talking about post-conviction.
Yeah, post-conviction.
He's a registered sex offender.
That's right.
Still staying at his house.
He's staying at his house.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Also, 2015, I have a documented link here.
He might just be cheap and not want to spend.
Epstein funded Ehud Barak.
Hey, you don't know no other Jews or real estate in New York City.
All right, let me continue. Epstein funded Ehud Barak's defense intelligence startup to the tune of millions of dollars. So that, in my opinion, is one of the real smoking guns. Because what did I talk about earlier with Robert Maxwell? Was the funding of software used by the Israeli government to do what? To spy on the United States.
Now this software would be used to spy everywhere, I imagine.
Right. Yeah, of course, like Pegasus, right? And all of these other things are right. So it's not just the United States, but it's everybody. All right. But here in this case, Epstein entered partnership worth millions with Ehud Barak in 2015, post-conviction, registered sex offender. Okay, let's continue. Barak is who? The former, not only prime minister, the former head of military intelligence inside of Israel. Let's continue beyond that, and let's say ask about Ehud Barak and what else he did. I have this in the Wexner section. If you want, it is. Let me find it here.
It is so bizarre.
I may not have actually put a citation. You can Google it if you would like. Epstein, who was also named by Leslie Wexner as a trustee of the Wexner Foundation, paid Ehud Barak $2.3 million to complete 2 consulting reports, one of which he never finished. Okay? $2.3 million paid by the Wexner Foundation to Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, for one of which he never finished. Okay? I'm just saying, good work if you can get it. Right? 2.3 million. Everybody out there, if you're struggling with your bills and your mortgage, this is insane. All right? This is insane. For purposes of what? We don't know. Now let's return to the Wexner Foundation.
Why would you be paying him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
What's going on?
No, I guess I'm saying, like, why is that advantageous? Like,
because it's like a jobs program for all of these former Israeli officials, and it's basically a network where, and this is actually fits what I was about to continue. The Wexner Foundation funds a fellowship right now at Harvard University, which, by the way, of course, also had connections with Jeffrey Epstein. And what did we see? Is that the Wexner Foundation has for decades now sponsored programs where Israeli officials, including military officials and civil government officials, come to the United States to, quote, learn leadership. And it's known as one of the largest networks of like highly influential Israeli government officials who come to the United States and basically link up with one another as a very, very powerful nexus. So the Wexner Foundation is involved.
And why is that incriminating that they come here and learn leadership?
Well, it's not incriminating. I'm just saying that the Wexner, this is an American, he's a billionaire, he's funding AIPAC and all of these various Zionist causes. He's also paying weirdly $2.3 million to a former Israeli prime minister. This is a foundation which Epstein has a lot of control over. By the way, just to be fair to them, they have claimed that Epstein had no influence over that decision. Okay, I mean, he was, basically running it, and he had power of attorney by Leslie Wexner. But, to be fair to the Wexner Foundation, I mean, I just think it's crazy. This is insane. to pay $2.3 million to Abe Barack.
So take me down that line of thinking.
Yeah.
If you pay him that money, what does that mean?
Yeah, for what? It's like to what? To what
take
end?
me down
I
there,
don't
like,
know. I
give
mean,
me an alleged, give me a hypothetical.
my
just like-
hypothetical is that these are basically ways to create slush funds that perhaps he was using, and others to fund other intelligence operations.
So
this returns me to the black money point.
Now-
is that you
okay.
need legitimate ways to wash money.
Okay, so then
nonprofits are
he's
great
giving
ways.
the money to him, and then
Yeah.
he's doing, nefarious
Who knows what he's
activities
doing?
with it.
I don't know what he's doing.
Is there
Yeah.
a way of looking at it where you go, Jeffrey Epstein is working for U.S. intelligence, and in a way, this is how they're bribing Israeli intelligence
You very may
to
well
be
be onto
loyal
something.
to
Right.
U.S.
And this is why I will never sit here and say he was solely a Mossad agent or a
Right.
Mossad asset, solely a U.S. asset. I think he was a hired gun. He would work for anybody.
For anybody.
And everybody would want to work with this person who
Because he has access to all the rich
to the
and
world's
famous people.
money,
Yeah.
to the world's rich and the famous. He can tell you the secrets. I mean, this is the gold standard of an intelligence asset in the United States of America, the capital of the global empire, right? New York City, the capital of global finance. People, even private business people would want to be friends with Epstein because, like, hey, what's going on with that deal? Are they going to, do a leveraged buyout with this person? And Epstein would be like, yeah, maybe I can find out for you, right? And he, calls up this person. So there are a lot of reasons to want to have access to all of this,
And why
much
would
of which is very
Barack want
beneficial.
access to? Why would he want access to Epstein?
Well, that is one of those things where I actually think the relationship was the other way because it might be just a quid pro quo situation. Like you're Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, and Jeffrey Epstein is a guy who made his money somehow, and you need millions of dollars from him, not a legitimate, venture capital firm. I think that the reason that they want sketchy money is because it was probably, in my opinion, some sort of intelligence front, and that this is exactly, he's fulfilling his purpose. The finance of highly influential Israeli government officials who come to the United States and basically link up with one another as a very, very powerful dollars paid by the Wexner Foundation to Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, for one of which he never finished. Okay? I'm just saying, good work if you can get it.
Yeah,
right? 2.3 million. Everybody out there, if you're struggling with your bills and your mortgage, this is insane. All right? This is insane. For purposes of what? We don't know. Now let's return to the Wexner Foundation.
Why would you be paying him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
What's
my
going
question.
on?
No, I guess I'm saying, why is that advantageous?
Because it's like a jobs program for all of these former Israeli officials, and it's basically a network where, and this is actually fits what I was about to continue. The Wexner Foundation funds a fellowship right now at Harvard University, which, by the way, of course, also had connections with Jeffrey Epstein. And what did we see? Is that the Wexner Foundation has, for decades now, sponsored programs where Israeli officials, including military officials and civil government officials, come to the United States to, quote, learn leadership. And it's known as one of the largest networks of highly influential Israeli government officials who come to the United States and basically link up with one another as a very, very powerful nexus. So the Wexner Foundation is involved.
And why is that?
Like in Utah, where all those people were, when Candace was doing the research, and all of those people were from foreign places, and everybody's parents worked for the CIA or intelligence, and they was, all of that crazy stuff. Military, now Air Force Base, from Qatar, the man on the roof. Just stay woke. Park it.
Incriminating that they come here and learn leadership.
Well, it's not incriminating. I'm just saying that the Wexner, this is an American, he's a billionaire, he's funding AIPAC and all of these various Zionist causes. He's also paying, weirdly, $2.3 million to a former Israeli prime minister. This is a foundation which Epstein has a lot of control over. By the way, just to be fair to them, they have claimed that Epstein had no influence over that decision. Okay, I mean, he was, basically running it, and he had power of attorney by Leslie Wexner. But, to be fair to the...
And the guy in the back, him right here, Netanyahu, that's Bibi's son, who has ties to Epstein. Can you believe that? Bibi Netanyahu's son has ties to Epstein. AunTeaFee, huh? I know you lying. This one right here, him. Yeah. He has ties to Epstein. Bibi Yata Yatanahu. I ain't gonna mess with you. I ain't ucking with you, AunTeaFee. Him son has ties to Epstein. Let's go. Let's go.
Officials who come to the United States and basically link up with one another as a very, very powerful nexus. So the Wexner Foundation is involved.
And why is that incriminating that they come here and learn leadership?
Well, it's not incriminating. I'm just saying that the Wexner, this is an American, he's a billionaire, he's funding
But
AIPAC
didn't Bin
and all
Laden,
these
wasn't
various
he?
Zionist causes.
Didn't he get
He's
trained
also
by us?
paying
A lot of
weirdly
them
$2.3 million to a former
folk
Israeli
get trained
prime
by
minister.
the
This is a
U.S.
foundation which Epstein has a lot of control over. By the way, just to be fair to them, they have claimed that Epstein had no influence over that decision. Okay, I mean, he was, basically running it, and he had power of attorney by Leslie Wexner. But, to be fair to the Wexner Foundation, I mean, I just think it's crazy. This is insane to pay $2.3 million to Abe Barak.
So take me down that line of thinking.
Yeah.
If you pay him that money, what does that mean?
Yeah, for what? It's like to what
Take
end?
me down
I
there,
don't know. I
give
mean,
give me a hypothetical.
my
just
hypothetical is that these are basically ways to create slush funds that perhaps he was using, and others to fund other intelligence operations.
So
this returns me to the black money point,
Now-
is that you need legitimate ways to wash money.
Okay, so then
nonprofits are great
he's giving
ways.
the money to him, and then
Yeah.
he's doing, nefarious
Who knows what he's
activities
doing?
with it.
I don't know what he's doing.
Is there a way of looking at it where you go, Jeffrey Epstein is working for U.S. intelligence, and in a way, this is how they're bribing Israeli intelligence
You very may
to
well
be
be onto
loyal
something.
to
Right.
U.S.
And this is why I will never sit here and say he was solely a Mossad agent or a
Right.
Mossad asset, solely a U.S. asset. I think he was he was a hired gun. He would work for anybody.
For anybody.
And everybody would want to work with this person who
Because he has access to all the
access
rich
to the
and
world's
famous people.
money,
Yeah.
to the world's rich and the famous. He can tell you the secrets. I mean, this is the gold standard of an intelligence asset in the United States of America, the capital of the global empire, right? New York City, the capital of global finance. People, even private business people would want to be friends with Epstein because, like, hey, what's going on with that deal? Are they going to, do a leverage buyout with this person? And Epstein would be like, yeah, maybe I can find out for you, right? And he, calls up this person. So there are a lot of reasons to want to have access to all of this,
And why
much
would
of which is very
Barack want
beneficial.
access to? Why would he want access to Epstein?
Well, that is one of those things where I actually think the relationship was the other way, because it might be just a quid pro quo situation. Like, you're Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, and Jeffrey Epstein is a guy who made his money somehow, and you need millions of dollars from him, not a legitimate, venture capital firm. I think that the reason that they want sketchy money is because it was probably, in my opinion, some sort of intelligence front, and that this is exactly, he's fulfilling his purpose. The financier uses the money, the dirty money, or the untraceable money, to fund future spyware, intelligence companies. This gets to the front company discourse. It also shows us that he was involved in this in 2015. It wasn't that long ago, okay? It was only 10 years ago that he was still doing this. So it shows that even post-conviction, he's continuing the behavior, which is very suspicious, in my opinion. So that's where we are with Ehud Barak. Now let's return to Netanyahu, because this is a fun story, actually. So Netanyahu, in 2011, I have that screenshot in my tweet if you want to go ahead and put that
take this
up
down.
there.
Hold on.
Netanyahu met with the JP Morgan exec I mentioned earlier, Jess Staley, all right? So return to Netanyahu.
Yeah,
because,
get the
this
lights
is a
up,
fun story,
please.
actually. So Netanyahu, in 2011,
Hit the like button, please. Oh my God, it just keeps getting better and better. We will know the full reason here shortly why they don't want the files released. It is not just about Trump. Tell us speechless. Can we get the lights up? What is toxic weed?
He's continuing the behavior, which is very suspicious, in my opinion.
Got
so
it.
that's where we are with Ehud Barak. Now let's return to Netanyahu, because this is a fun story, actually. So Netanyahu in 2011, I have that screenshot in my tweet if you want to go ahead and put that up there. Netanyahu met with the JP Morgan exec I mentioned earlier, Jess Staley, all right? So Jess Staley in 2011 emails Epstein, and he said, I got to find the exact text. I don't have it here in the document, but I tweeted it a couple of days ago. Let me just go ahead and find it, because the wording of it is genuinely remarkable, where he sends him an email and he said something like, against all odds. Yeah, here we go. In 2011, JP Morgan executive forwarded an email to Epstein. Against all odds, we have been granted a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Epstein replies, surprise, surprise. The U.S. Virgin Island notes that he was a key conduit in brokering meetings like this. And so here's from the U.S. Virgin Islands lawsuit, where they note some of the world's dignitaries: Prince Andrew, Ehud Barak, Netanyahu, David Gergen.
Hold on. I was looking at something else. Hold on. Wait a minute. What is it? What was this? Hold on.
Something like, against all...
There's a lot of comedic drama happening in India right now.
Yes.
Dang it. Hold on.
Let's get to Ehud Barak. This is important, because now I want... Surprise, surprise. The U.S. Virgin Island notes that he was a key conduit in brokering meetings like this. And so here's from the U.S. Virgin Islands lawsuit, where they note some of the world's dignitaries: Prince Andrew, Ehud Barak, Netanyahu, David Gergen.
And the Epstein case goes so deep into the intelligence world, and Tucker Carlson kind of broke that open. I don't know if Jeffrey Epstein is a Mossad agent. He has connections to 3 former Israeli prime ministers, one especially in Ehud Barak, who visited his home 36 times. There are pictures of him kind of trying to disguise himself as he goes in and out. Started a surveillance company with possible help from Epstein. Ehud Olmert had met with Epstein. Shimon Peres had met with Epstein. Epstein hooked up meetings for JP Morgan executives with Netanyahu. And Epstein sought multiple passports to travel to Israel and Africa. He traveled to Israel in 2008 when he was fleeing prosecution. And then there's also the whole issue of Epstein in the Virgin Islands, where what Epstein is known to have done, and this is what he appears to have done with Les Wexner, who helped Howard Lutnick buy his townhome through a holding company he and Jeffrey Epstein controlled next to Epstein. And Les Wexner enabled Jeffrey Epstein to buy his own townhome for $0 down. What Epstein would do is he'd go to places like the Virgin Islands and offshore their taxes. And when Jeffrey Epstein came under investigation, remember that lady who was screaming at Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger for the Twitter files in Congress? Baron, you're muted. She was the Virgin Islands representative. Stacey Plaskett. She has received, I think, $200,000 from Jeffrey Epstein to not investigate him, and the Attorney General, Li Feng, has been talking about this a lot. The Attorney General in the Virgin Islands was paid off by Epstein, and he's now currently the Attorney General. I mean, there's so many angles to this story. I don't see the press actually going down there, but Democrats are implicated, Republicans are implicated. There's an Israel angle for sure, and many people are wondering, has Trump been told to shut this down by some of the foreign intelligence agencies and powerful people who are integrated into those agencies, like
Bigger
Les
than
Wexner
Rump.
is a proxy for Israel in the U.S. in many ways.
It's bigger than a rump cycle.
Have they been told Trump to shut this down for their own sake?
It also indicts these prominent
And
financiers.
Bibi
Who are they really? Where do they get their money
Netanyahu's
from?
son,
How do they
Yair,
operate in the U.S.? They're
is
constantly just moving
associated with
money around. Les Wexner and these other
Epstein.
figures that are responsible for Jeffrey Epstein making his fortune. They're all pro-Israel, big money men. And so there's just a lot that could be a whole another investigation. I know, Max, you've talked about how the Israelis use figures like that to move money in the United States. So I remember also during the initial raids on Epstein that they said in one of his safes they found a Saudi passport, which was an odd one. But that seems to suggest some sort of intelligence connection. I don't know how he otherwise would have just gotten a Saudi passport. It's not something that most people could get their hands on.
Yeah, I mean what it really is, for sure. Let's just say we have no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein is a Mossad agent who worked for Mossad, and we're going to get into that in a second. But Jeffrey Epstein existed at the heart of the Zionist world. If he hadn't been exposed, he would have been one of those donors who would have been forcing Harvard University to criminalize its Students for Justice in Palestine group. Les Wexner did the same thing at Ohio State University. He was down with all those guys. Alan Dershowitz was his right-hand man, and he was seeking to start a kind of transhumanist center at Harvard University to perfect the human race, and Dershowitz would come and visit him there. Dershowitz visited his island. Dershowitz was asked by Netanyahu to represent Israel at the United Nations when Netanyahu came back in 2009, but Dershowitz didn't want to give up his U.S. passport. So Epstein is deep in that world, and that world doesn't want to talk about it at all. I mean, Ohio State raked in $336,000 from Jeffrey Epstein through the Les Wexner Center. And this is all money washing. It might have come from Wexner himself through Epstein back there. And Ohio State cannot remove, even though Wexner stepped down as CEO of Victoria's Secret because of all these revelations, accused by women of, actually participating in the sexual abuse of Jeffrey Epstein. Ohio State can't dislodge him because they just depend on him so substantially for money. He owns downtown Columbus, Ohio, and this is Epstein's right-hand man. He was also tight buddies with, what's his name? Lee Weiss, the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania business magnate, who is the father of Barry Weiss, who was just at a off-the-record, semi-secret retreat in Sun Valley with the top figures in tech, finance. Chuck Schumer was there. Allen and Company, we talked about it last week. Allen is one of her top donors. So what I'm saying is all these people are scratching each other's backs, and Epstein was in the middle of it. So it's perfect that this would have to be buried at some point, along with the missing minute. I mean, this videotape of Epstein's cell appears to have been manipulated. So I want to talk about TPUSA, though. I'm kind of like going down the rabbit hole too far, but I wanted to establish that. So here's Tucker Carlson at TPUSA. Just like everything exploded after this point.
Not acceptable. And I think the real answer is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of Intel Services, probably not America. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan?
And Donald Barr, William Barr's father, was the headmaster of Dalton School, hired Jeffrey Epstein, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty.
And listen to the applause.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things. Murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting US president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born here. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I love this country. That's why I live here. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person.
Right.
So we get the point. And this was sort of the lecture that so many young, I don't even know what to call them, America Firsters had been waiting to hear delivered to the conservative movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't trust the elites. The CIA is a secret government. This is not
Sorry.
like hating America. And Israel is actually kind of evil and plays a malign role in U.S. politics. But what, I mean, people are, you know, I see liberals saying, oh, this is the stupid wing of the Republican Party. This seems to me like the critical thinking wing.
I would rather have Israel scrutinized in a different way, the U.S. support for Israel scrutinized in a different way, just in terms of like morality, like why are we supporting this insane mass murdering ethno state and how does it serve our interests? I think that's where the focus should be. But if it has to be through the prism of Jeffrey Epstein, like I'll take it. Even if I think, you know, I'm not ready to endorse some of the maximalist views on Jeffrey Epstein and Israel and Mossad and all that stuff, because I haven't seen the evidence to sway me in that direction. But whether I'm right or wrong, I do think this kind of scrutiny on Israel is healthy. And if this is the way, this is the form it has to take, then I'm all for it. And I wish also what we're seeing at that conservative gathering would be mirrored on the Democratic side. But whenever the issue of Israel comes up on the Democratic side, even as it's reflected in the polls with people being disgusted with what Israel is doing, Democratic leadership still will not budge. So far right now, we're seeing more movement, it seems, more openness inside the MAGA movement than we are on the Democratic side, even though it's through this prism, this relatively narrow prism of Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, I think Epstein, the way that these people discuss it, kind of gets to the heart. That what they're getting at is U.S. government manipulation by the Israelis. That's what they're getting at, and that exists whether Epstein is proven to be part of that or not. And if he's not working for the Mossad, I mean, what Max, you already laid out connected a lot of the dots, or just who was behind him. The fact that they, again, seized all these cameras in every room and tapes, that there was some sort of filming and all, like, that was going on. They won't tell us now what they discovered in any of that, in any of those seizures, but what was all of that for? I mean, and what all the fleeing to Israel to avoid arrest, I mean, it could just be because that is where, I guess, pedophiles tend to go if they don't want to be extradited.
It's where people who are Jewish go who don't want to be extradited, no matter what they do, because they just don't extradite. The only person...
These cameras in every room and tapes, that there was some sort of filming and all, like, that was going on. They won't tell us now what they discovered in any of that, in any of those seizures, but what was all of that for? I mean, and what all the fleeing to Israel to avoid arrest, I mean, it could just be because that is where, I guess, pedophiles tend to go if they don't want to be extradited.
It's where people who are Jewish go.
That's where they're about to build a new paradise in Gaza. Yeah. And it's going to be a whole bunch of pedophiles with the country club, new hotels. Trumpo Towers.
room and
Pedo
tapes
Towers.
that there was some sort of filming and all like that was going on. They won't tell us now what they discovered in any of that, in any of those seizures. But what was all of that for? I mean, and what all of the fleeing to Israel to avoid arrest? I mean, it could just be because that is where I guess pedophiles tend to go if they don't want to be extradited.
It's where people who are Jewish go who don't want to be extradited, no matter what they do, because they just don't extradite. The only person who Israel has refused into its borders who is fleeing crimes was, I don't know if anyone can guess this. He was portrayed in the Godfather.
I know who it was, but I can't remember.
Meyer Lansky.
Okay, y'all. Let me see what this guy said about Diddy since his name is in the title. Hold on. And then I'm going to sleep. Something about Diddy and Trump. Let me see what he's talking about. Oh, Lord. And just so y'all know, before I go there, let me show y'all some what I got cooking. I don't know if y'all ready for that. Y'all, I'm finna say it, T-Sippers. All of these people are tied together. Ain't that one of them? Is that one of them guys? Well, will you look at that? Well, will you look at that? So they in the Epstein files too, AunTeaFee. They in the Epstein files too, baby. What kicked you out? They all in the Epstein files. So when I say Trump is trying to protect all of his interests, his business interests, make sense, y'all? Is it beginning to make a little more sense? All them folk that he doing business with. Yeah. Charlie had to go. Charlie had to go. Oh, what is it now? I'm getting sleepy. That's it.
IRS needs an evaluation. There may be items to clear, and every month.
That he was playing Monopoly and that he was going to access denied. Diddy really thought that he was playing Monopoly and that he was going to get this get out of jail card. Access denied because Trump is not answering your calls. It looks like he has much bigger problems to deal with, and Diddy is not on that list. Diddy thought that he was going to receive this favor, but Trump is not Clive Davis. Diddy knows what to do to Clive Davis to make him happy, but Diddy can't do that to Trump. So therefore, Diddy and his hopes have come crashing down again. Hey guys, it's Murad, daily and consistent content. Join Murad Nation, become a Marader, click that button, subscribe, and let's get straight into this video, daily and consistent. He really thought it was a done deal. A source inside his camp claimed to Hollywood insider Rob Shooter, who wrote about it on his Substack on Sunday, October 12th. This is in regards to Diddy being extremely agitated and paranoid behind bars as the pardon from Trump is not happening.
Nope.
Because no one's returning his calls anymore.
Nope. Big Daddy
While
ain't
Shooter wrote about it on
answering.
his Substack, A Hollywood Insider, he was telling people he'd been out in weeks, that he was coming out, and now reality is sinking in. This corroborates with the fact that in court, Diddy confirmed that he had these talking engagements in Miami on Monday. He was that confident that he was leaving. Diddy was sentenced to just over 4 years. He'll spend less time. But,
And Trump not answering his calls either.
He asked Trump for a pardon. Shooter was told that Diddy's team spent months hinting about how their allies in DC were making calls to the president to secure a pardon. Turns out, no one's returning his calls anymore, the insider claimed. Trump revealed that Combs' pardon request on October 6th and let the fact that it didn't happen to be his response. A lot of people have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy. He asked me for a pardon, he confirmed. The president huffed in an interview on the evening Diddy was sentenced. I was very friendly with him. I got along with him great, and he seemed like a nice guy.
Man, we know all of that.
But when I ran for office, he was very hostile toward me.
Someone
Trump said in an earlier
like the kids
interview.
and someone
Diddy
like
is
the
reported
boys.
to be extremely upset over the fact that these calls are not being answered anymore. It's planned by his lawyers.
You call too much. Look at here. Doodle Diddy. You call people too much. The verdict is in. He ain't budging. Now see, now I got to talk to you with a, strong voice. Stop calling folk every time you think you have a bright idea. Shit ain't working. Learn something. People can read all through you. We know you ain't learned a motherfucking thing. Because you still got tricks, silly rabbit. And ain't nobody falling for them. So sit your 5 cents ass. What did he say in New Jack City? What did he say? Sit your 2 cents ass or 5 cents ass down before I make some change. Sit your ass down, nigga. And stop blowing up people's phone. You don't have no money to be paying for them $15 for 5-minute calls. Talking for days. Talking like it's calling like the phones are secure. You ain't finna set me up on shit. You ain't finna blackmail me. You ain't finna remind me that you was the one that turned me on, and you ain't finna slide nothing in there. No. The answer is no. Now sit down, and when it comes time for you to go to the yard, you take your ass out there and hit that body. Yeah, hit that bag. Get your weight up, Nick. Get your weight up.
That they had in DC are not really connects, because if you had those connects as the Avengers that you are, 6 to 8 lawyers, Diddy probably would have been pardoned by now. Something would have been going in the motion. It would have been
if he would not have been trying to threaten
but that's
Trump.
not happening because Trump is not answering your calls because you're not important to him. He doesn't get anything out of pardoning you.
You don't have enough money. He over there in Israel with them Israelis over there in Egypt, patting his own self on the back. Man, you ain't got enough money. You understand? So go on in there and chill. If you can't call Jay-Z, if Clive Davis acting like he don't know your name, say my name, say my name. You acting kind of funny. Yes, say my name. He ain't saying your name. He act like he can't hear no more. To my who, caller, are you there? Who, he playing you like, yeah. Yeah. You can't call Jay? Well, what's his name? Ye came to see you in court. You can't call Ye? I mean, You better be calling Costco to see if you can market some of that baby oil while your ass is up there in prison, so that you know when they do what they do, that it don't have to be all rough and tough. You know, I just think that's a good market for you. But had to carry on. I'm sleeping now. I'm talking to you ignorant.
You and him pardoning you,
Jay-Z
would then have some type of conversation about Ghislaine and the fact that she didn't get the pardon, but he did. And it would just elicit more conversations about Ghislaine and Epstein and Trump.
They don't know him either.
Sorry, Diddy. The calls are not being answered.
Mary. Now, I know you. I'm dropping the phone. I'm dropping the phone. Mary J. Mary J. ain't answering the phone. You mean Mary J. She ain't answering the phone for you either. Wow. Flavor Flav. Wow. What's the 411? She won't take your call. Man, you
comfortable in the prison you're going to be in, because that's where you're going to be for the next 2 to 3 years.
And your son coming with you.
Now, if you guys remember the Christian Combs Diddy lawsuit on the yacht, where Christian Combs was accused of, fierce SA and forms of assault as well, by coercing her into taking a shot of tequila and lacing her with substances. Well, there are updates in regards to this case. New documents obtained show that Aaron Dyer, an attorney for the Diddy family, state that these are manufactured lies and irrelevant facts, and that they were seeking to dismiss this outrageous claim.
Okay.
A motion has been filed, and the judge has decided to grant this motion and has dismissed this lawsuit completely. I am utterly shocked by this. I didn't expect this specific lawsuit involving Christian Combs on a yacht to be dismissed, but this is a big win for Diddy and Christian Combs especially. In filing in support of the defendant's motion to dismiss, Diddy's legal team claimed that plaintiffs alleged no facts to support an aiding and abetting claim against Diddy. No facts about Sean's alleged knowledge, participation, or substantial assistance in Christian's alleged assault. No facts to suggest that Diddy was even present around the time. The allegations that Sean created a party atmosphere with drugs and, workers cannot reasonably be parlayed to Sean having actual knowledge and making a conscious choice to participate in Christian's alleged SA. They claim that Omar Say's team could not even invoke the California law for her alleged harm because it didn't even happen over there, and that the yacht was also chartered by September Yachting Limited allegedly.
Yeah, because the other one got a case too.
Or registered in the state of California. So Omar Say.
Only one don't seem to be in no trouble is Quincy.
A lawsuit in the state of California when this didn't even take place in that state. Although Christian lives in California, his father was registered in Florida. Here, the complaint has no allegations connecting Diddy on the one hand and California on the other. Plaintiff's allegations took place exclusively in international waters near the.
Now that other guy that came out yesterday on Everybody Talk Show, well, he said one of his incidents happened in California. And Harvey Levin said, oh Lord. Harvey Levin said that charges should have been brought up against Diddy in LA. So I'm gonna cut you off right there because you kind of behind. Okay, y'all, I'm finna go to sleep. I'm cutting folk off. Okay, thank y'all for spending time with me. See you later, alligator, at the wild.